Hi folks, Dr. Robert Barrington here with some more nutrition advice. Now, I wanted to do a video today on caffeine and drinking tea. I get a lot of people sending me questions asking me about tea and anxiety. And I think this is a contentious topic, and it's something that I wanted to cover, but I wanted to give an alternative for those people who find caffeine does make them anxious. Now, from my personal experience, I think that in a lot of people, caffeine is not problematic. As long as it's taken in moderation and it's drunk within tea, I think caffeine can be actually an anxiolytic compound. I think some people who drink tea actually get a calming effect from it, and I don't think that comes all from the L-theanine that's in the tea. There is L-theanine in the tea. There are other things as well as the caffeine, and tea is a calming drink. It does have a stimulatory property, but it's well known that if somebody's had some bad news, somebody's had a shock, if you give them a cup of tea, it does calm them down. And a lot of that calming effect has been attributed to the L-theanine, and I don't think that is the whole story. I do think caffeine has an anxiolytic effect, but you have to be one of those people that's not sensitive to it. But clearly some people are sensitive to caffeine in tea and caffeine in coffee and caffeine in other drinks like colas, and those people should avoid tea. They tend to drink the tea, and it makes them on edge and actually can increase anxiety. And this is one of the problems with nutrition, is people respond very differently to different foods, and you have to judge your own reaction. Personally, I drink tea. I don't find it makes me anxious, and in fact, I think that tea is for me a very calming drink. Now, clearly some of that comes from the L-theanine, but I do think that caffeine for me, personally, I'm not caffeine sensitive. I don't really get any stimulation from drinking a cup of tea. I don't feel anything from it in terms of an increase in energy that you would expect from the caffeine. I'm not particularly caffeine sensitive. So if you're like that, and you drink tea, tea is a very healthy drink. Green tea is very healthy. Black tea is very healthy. White tea is very healthy. All of the teas from the Camellia sinensis plant are very healthy drinks. They've been researched many times. There are lots of studies that have shown that drinking tea has all sorts of health benefits. It can reduce the risk of dementia. It can reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. It can reduce the risk of cancers. Very high amounts of antioxidants in tea. So it's a great drink, and I recommend that people incorporate it as part of a balanced diet. But if you are one of those people that is sensitive to caffeine and to drinking tea, it's sometimes difficult to actually find, maybe you like a hot drink. It's difficult to find a drink that has similar kind of properties but doesn't cause that stimulatory effect. So what I would recommend is actually that you try drinking cocoa. I think cocoa is a very underrated health drink. Tea is talked about a lot. If you go online and you do an internet search, there are many articles talking about the health benefits of tea. There are not so many talking about the health benefits of cocoa. But if we actually look at the science, surrounding these two drinks, clearly cocoa has the similar types of health effects as tea. Now, cocoa contains methylxanthines. It contains theobromine. It contains a different range of methylxanthines. It doesn't necessarily contain the same methylxanthines as tea and coffee. And by the methylxanthines, what I mean are the three methylxanthines that we get in those drinks are caffeine, we get theobromine, and we get theophylline as well. Now, those are the three methylxanthines. Caffeine is the most well known. Now, coffee, tea, cocoa, they all have methylxanthines in them, but they have different ratios, and cocoa tends to have more theobromine, and that's because cocoa is from a different plant, and it's just it still has small amounts of caffeine. It can still have stimulatory effects in some people, but I find it's a very different drink. It doesn't have the same effects in people. But if we look at the health effects are clearly as evidenced. You know, cocoa has been evidenced to show to have cause a reduction in cardiovascular disease, for example. It has high amounts of this, you know, similar kind of antioxidant levels. They're different antioxidants. So in cocoa, for example, the antioxidants tend to be proanthocyanidins. They're long chains of the same types of antioxidants that you get in tea, but they're polymerized together, and they seem to have slightly different effects. But it's a hot drink, and it doesn't have, I don't think, the same stimulatory effects as tea. So where am I really going with this video? Well, I wanted to make the video because people say, you know, I like drinking tea, but it makes me anxious. I want to drink a hot drink, but I can't drink tea. Everybody's saying that tea is a great healthy drink, but I can't drink it because it makes me anxious. So those people that are caffeine sensitive, and those people that have to avoid tea, and particularly coffee, because I think coffee is the extreme version of tea. It makes it, you know, I think coffee, of all of the three drinks, cocoa, tea and coffee, it has the most caffeine in it, and I think that is the reason that coffee tends to be the most stimulatory, and it tends to cause the most anxiety in those people that are caffeine sensitive. But if you go to the other end of the scale, I think cocoa is at the other end of the scale, and it is a calm. I think it's more a calming drink. Now, this is very anecdotal, but drinking cocoa before bed is traditionally known to induce sleep. For example, if it was a very stimulatory drink, that's not something that you would perhaps recommend. Now, I know some people do drink coffee before going to bed and they sleep very well, but coffee is seen as a drink that you would have in the morning to wake you up. Cocoa is seen as a drink that you might have at the end of the day in order to help you sleep, and that's where I see these drinks. Tea is a drink that maybe fits in the middle, but you know, all of these drinks are very healthy. Now, coffee is a healthy drink. People deride coffee and say, you know, it's not particularly healthy, but you have to be very careful not to include instant coffee with you know, not proper filter coffee. Proper filter coffee has high amounts of antioxidants, and although it does contain high amounts of caffeine and methylxanthines, it is a stimulatory drink. It clearly has health effects, beneficial health effects. Tea has beneficial health effects because it has high amounts of antioxidants, and cocoa has health effects also because it has high amounts of antioxidants. All three drinks have methylxanthines in them, but the profiles are slightly different. Coffee tends to have the highest amount of caffeine. Cocoa tends to have low amounts of caffeine and more theobromine, and they're all stimulatory drinks really when you look at the chemistry of them, but in reality, tea for most people is a calming drink, but even those people that are caffeine sensitive tend not to be able to drink it. For those people, I would try drinking cocoa. It might not work for everybody, and like I say, nutrition is a very individualistic thing, but cocoa is a drink that you can get most of the health benefits that you can from tea. Like I say, it contains the same antioxidants, it's just that they're polymerized together to make long chains. So they are catechin, you know, these polymers are made up of the catechins that normally come from tea. They fit together to form these proanthocyanidins, and there is some evidence that the proanthocyanidins may be broken down into catechins, but generally these proanthocyanidins have their own effects. They are antioxidants in their own right, and in particular, cocoa has been shown to have these beneficial effects against cardiovascular disease. I personally think that if you can tolerate the caffeine, tolerate the methylxanthines, all of these drinks are drinks that will help with mental health, with anxiety, with depression, and that's because of the high amounts of antioxidants. Time and time again, if we look at the foods that help mental health, that help anxiety, help depression, they're always foods with high amounts of antioxidants, and these three drinks have all got high amounts of antioxidants. However, the caveat is that you have to be insensitive to the caffeine. If the caffeine is too stimulatory for you, then you need to obviously keep that in check. So if you can tolerate coffee and you drink filter coffee, great. It's a very healthy drink as long as you don't overdo it. The same with tea. It's a very healthy drink. If you can't tolerate tea or coffee, what I would suggest is that you try drinking cocoa, because you know, it fits in that group of drinks, but perhaps it's the most the least stimulatory of all three. And you know, you can derive some really good health effects from it. So you don't have to avoid your hot drink. You can still get your, you know, instead of having a cup of tea, have a cup of cocoa. It's very easy to make. You just put a spoon in hot water, stir it in. You can add a little bit of milk, or you can make it with milk, which is the traditional way of having cocoa before you go to bed. And that warm milk as well is probably one of the reasons that the cocoa helps induce sleep. So I hope that was interesting. As always, eat well, stay healthy, and protect yourself. And I'll see you soon for another video. Take care.